Friends, if you're a true anime lover and want to experience one of the biggest blockbusters of the year, then you must like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe for more updates on your favorite anime films. In today's video, we're diving into one of the most anticipated anime releases of 2025, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba the movie, Infinity Castle. This movie has taken fans by storm with its jaw-dropping animation, intense battles, emotional moments, and unforgettable soundtrack. We'll talk about everything you need to know, what the movie is all about, where and when you can watch it, and on which OTT platform or satellite channel it will be available. From behind-the-scenes details to its massive box office success, we'll cover it all. We'll also take a closer look at the technical brilliance of Ufotable, the music by Yuki Kajura and Go Shina, the voice cast, and how the film was made from pre-production to post-production. Not to mention its huge budget and the records it's already breaking. And yes, we'll also discuss the powerful storyline, the intense character arcs, and the emotional impact this movie has had on fans worldwide. I'll give you a quick review of the film, talk about the standout performances of your favorite characters, and reveal which Demon Slayers take center stage in this chapter. So make sure to stay tuned until the very end because you don't want to miss any of the fascinating facts and hidden details from Infinity Castle. Let's jump into the world of Demon Slayer and get started with today's video. The story of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba the movie, Infinity Castle unfolds like a violent, beautiful symphony of chaos and sacrifice, an unrelenting descent into the heart of darkness. It does not follow a soft, comforting arc. There is no time to breathe. The film grabs the audience by the throat in the first 5 minutes and drags them straight into a collapsing world of crimson, thunder, and fire. It begins moments after the events of the Hashira training arc. There is no long-winded setup or expository lull, just the abrupt and horrifying appearance of Muzan Kibutsuji at the Ubuyashiki estate. It's a declaration of war. In a blaze of blood and carnage, Kagaya Ubuyashiki sacrifices himself in a fiery explosion that shakes the very foundation of the Demon Slayer core. This isn't just an opening scene. It is the opening wound. Then the trap is sprung. Muzan drags the remaining Hashira and Key Slayers, Tanjiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, Inosuke and others, into the Infinity Castle, an interdimensional labyrinth that folds in on itself. From here the story spirals. Quite literally. The structure of the film mimics the Infinity Castle's architecture, shifting, chaotic, full of unpredictability. Rooms move, floors vanish, and characters are thrown into isolated battles that strip them of backup, forcing personal confrontations with demons that are more than just monstrous enemies. They're embodiments of their trauma, regrets, and rage. There is no central timeline holding everything together. The film fractures itself across multiple perspectives. Shinobu trapped in a poison-soaked corridor facing Doma, the demon who took her sister. Takedo Michiro confronting Kokushibo, the Upper Moon One, in a battle that pushes swordplay and soul to the edge. Sanemi and Gyomii unleashing their final strength in a blood-drenched fury that lights up the castle with sheer power. These stories are happening simultaneously, but the film doesn't cut between them like a traditional ensemble film. Instead, each sequence is immersive and complete, taking the viewer into a contained world of that fight. The emotional core, the visual language, the stakes unique to that character. This choice fractures time. It feels non-linear because the viewer experiences battles in full, one after another, yet they are all happening within the same dying hour. That tension, that sense that time is running out yet frozen, creates unbearable pressure. It is cinematic claustrophobia. Tanjiro's arc within the castle is a slow burn. While others plunge into combat, Tanjiro is hunting Muzan. Not blindly, his movements are heavy with grief, determination, and something sharper than hope. He's haunted. Every turn in the castle tests not just his body but his heart. The memories of Rengoku, the weight of family, the promise to Nezuko, all of it crashes down in moments of silence between the chaos. These emotional pauses are where the film breathes fire. No character escapes unscarred. One of the most emotionally charged sequences involves the confrontation between Shinobu and Doma. It isn't just about killing an Upper Moon. It's about revenge, about closure, about proving that pain can be transformed into something righteous. But the film doesn't romanticize her mission. It's brutal, tragic, and it ends with a sacrifice that defines the film's thematic backbone. The idea that victory often requires loss, and that heroes bleed, not just fight. Muchiro's duel with Kokushibo is a peak of technical animation and storytelling. But beyond the swords clashing in dazzling spectacle, what grips the heart is the revelation of bloodlines, regrets, and how the past never lets go. Kokushibo isn't just a monster. He is a mirror, a warning, a fallen warrior who reminds us how thin the line is between justice and obsession. The middle section of the film is an emotional crucible. Allies fall. Legends are broken. Muzan, lurking at the edges, becomes a force of cosmic dread, not a villain to defeat, but a void to resist. His presence is not constant, yet it dominates every frame. Every clash with his subordinates feels like a door slowly opening to something worse. And when Tanjiro finally comes face to face with Muzan, it does not feel like triumph. It feels like the beginning of the end. But the film resists closure. There is no final boss resolution here. The movie ends not with a conclusion, but with escalation, setting the stage for the next installment, yes, but more importantly leaving the characters, and us, suspended in the aftermath of survival. Nezuko's transformation, the whispers of the past, the toll of leadership now that many Hashira have fallen, these are left hanging in the air, unspeakable but heavy. The emotional impact of Infinity Castle lies not in who wins or who loses, but in the unbearable cost of continuing to fight. It's not a tale of hope versus despair. It is a story about perseverance in the face of loss, courage when surrounded by death, and the humanity that somehow survives amidst demons, both literal and metaphorical. The film doesn't follow a simple arc. It spirals. It breaks you down as it breaks the characters, then dares you to find meaning in the ruins. That is what Infinity Castle is, not just a battleground but a crucible for the soul. Prepare yourselves, demon slayers and enthusiasts alike, for a journey into the heart of the Infinity Castle arc, a narrative tapestry woven with threads of despair, courage, and the unyielding will to survive. This is not merely a film, it is a plunge into the abyss, a relentless assault on the senses and the soul, where the very fabric of reality warps and the stakes have never been higher.
The story of the Infinity Castle as it unfolds across this monumental cinematic trilogy does not deviate from a conventional chronological structure. There are no temporal distortions, no shifts in perspective that would disorient the viewer, nor any attempts at nonlinear storytelling. Instead, it embraces a relentless forward momentum, mirroring the desperate urgency of the battle it depicts. From the moment the characters are ensnared, the narrative propels us ever deeper into Muzan's domain, each beat a consequence of the last, each confrontation building on the sacrifices and struggles that precede it. The tone is overwhelmingly grim, the mood fraught with a pervasive sense of dread, yet illuminated by flashes of unwavering resolve and the enduring bonds of camaraderie. The narrative ignites with an abrupt, cataclysmic turning point. Muzan Kibutsuji's direct assault on the Abishiki mansion. This is not a slow burn. It is an explosion. The tranquility of the Demon Slayer Corps' leadership is shattered, and the seemingly impregnable sanctuary of Kagaya Abishiki is breached. This opening salvo immediately establishes the overwhelming power of the antagonist and the dire circumstances. It signals the end of strategizing and the beginning of the end. The sheer audacity of Muzan's move, his willingness to directly confront the very heart of the Demon Slayer Corps, is a chilling declaration of war. The emotional impact is immense, conveying a sense of profound vulnerability and the shattering of any lingering illusions of safety. This is a point of no return. From this shocking beginning, the story thrusts our heroes into the eponymous Infinity Castle, a dimension forged from the twisted will of Neikime, the upper rank 4 demon. This architectural nightmare serves as more than just a battleground. It is a character unto itself, constantly shifting, disorienting, and isolating the demon slayers. This new environment instantly creates a palpable sense of claustrophobia and helplessness. The central conflict immediately bifurcates: the individual battles against the upper ranks, and the overarching struggle to navigate and escape this labyrinthine prison. As the demon slayers are scattered within the castle, the narrative focuses on a series of harrowing high-stakes one-on-one and small group confrontations. Each encounter is a key turning point, not just for the individual combatants, but for the trajectory of the entire war. The first major clashes, often featuring unexpected pairings of Hashira and lower-ranked slayers against their formidable demonic adversaries, highlight the brutal power disparity. These battles are not merely spectacles of combat. They are crucibles that test the limits of physical endurance, mental fortitude, and the very spirit of the demon slayers. A crucial conflict emerges almost immediately as various Hashira find themselves face-to-face with the remaining upper ranks. The reintroduction of Akaza, the upper rank 3, is particularly impactful, reigniting the trauma of Rengoku's death and setting the stage for a deeply personal and emotionally charged rematch. The weight of past losses, the desperate need for revenge, and the sheer power of these ancient demons combine to create an atmosphere of intense despair. Yet within this despair, the narrative consistently spotlights the unwavering resolve of the demon slayers. Their refusal to surrender, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable odds, becomes a beacon in the pervasive darkness. The thematic impact of these early conflicts is profound. They delve into the nature of sacrifice, the meaning of true strength, and the enduring human spirit in the face of absolute evil. We witness the lengths to which these characters are willing to go, the physical and emotional scars they accrue, and the heavy toll of their mission. The narrative meticulously portrays the individual struggles, giving each character their moment to shine, or to fall, in a way that feels earned and impactful. The tone remains relentlessly serious, punctuated only by fleeting moments of determined resolve. As the story progresses, a significant turning point arises with the unfolding of the battles involving the highest-ranking upper moons. The confrontation with Doma, the upper rank 2, is a chilling portrayal of psychological manipulation and the insidious nature of his cruelty. This battle elevates the conflict beyond mere physical prowess, demanding a deeper emotional and strategic response from his opponents. Similarly, the horrifying encounter with Kokushibo, the upper rank 1, pushes the boundaries of power to an unprecedented level. His presence casts a shadow of almost unbearable hopelessness, challenging the very notion of victory. These fights are not merely about survival. They are about understanding the true depths of demonic power and the desperate need for unity and self-transcendence. The emotional core of the narrative is consistently driven by the bonds between the characters. Tanjiro's unwavering determination to save Nezuko, and his deep-seated empathy for even his enemies, serves as a crucial counterpoint to the relentless violence. The flashbacks, though not non-linear in their presentation, are strategically placed to deepen our understanding of characters' motivations and the origins of their strength, such as the poignant revelations about the past of certain Hashira. These moments offer brief respites from the immediate chaos, allowing the audience to connect with the characters on a more profound level. The climax of the first film, and indeed the entire trilogy, is undoubtedly the final confrontation with Muzan Kibutsuji. This is the ultimate turning point, the long-awaited culmination of centuries of struggle. The conflict here transcends individual battles. It becomes a desperate all-out war of attrition against the progenitor of all demons. The narrative does not shy away from the immense suffering and sacrifices required. The emotional impact is immense, a maelstrom of fear, hope, and the desperate yearning for an end to the nightmare. The thematic weight here is immense, exploring themes of legacy, the price of power, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil, even if that triumph comes at an unimaginable cost. The conclusion of the arc, spread across the subsequent films, will delve into the aftermath of the final battle, exploring the physical and psychological wounds inflicted, and the profound changes wrought upon the world. The ultimate emotional and thematic impact lies in the complete and utter transformation of the characters and the world they inhabit. The relentless tone and grim mood of the Infinity Castle arc are not arbitrary choices. They are integral to conveying the immense gravity of the final war and the unimaginable price of peace. The story, while conventionally structured, achieves its profound impact through the sheer intensity of its conflicts, the deep emotional resonance of its characters, and its unflinching portrayal of the brutal realities of a world consumed by demons. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, character development isn't just a narrative device. It's the emotional engine that drives the entire arc. The film plunges its ensemble into a surreal, ever-shifting battlefield where survival hinges not only on strength but on the culmination of personal growth, unresolved trauma, and the bonds forged through shared suffering. The tone is grim, the stakes are final, and the mood is suffused with dread and defiance. Within this crucible, each character is stripped to their core. Tanjiro Kamado enters the Infinity Castle not as a wide-eyed novice but as a hardened warrior whose compassion remains his greatest weapon. His arc is defined by the tension between vengeance and empathy. As he faces Akaza, the demon who killed Rengoku, Tanjiro's fury is palpable, but it's his ability to see the remnants of humanity in his enemy that elevates the confrontation. He unlocks the transparent world and the selfless state, not through brute force but through emotional clarity. His growth is spiritual, not just physical. Tanjiro's motivations, protecting Nezuko, honoring fallen comrades and ending Muzen's reign, are never diluted by the chaos around him. They sharpen, becoming the moral compass of the film. Nezuko Kamado, once a passive figure carried in a box, now stands beside her brother as a symbol of resistance. Her transformation reaches a critical point in the Infinity Castle, where her humanity begins to resurface. The film teases her return to human form, but it's her restraint, her refusal to consume human flesh, and her protective instincts that define her arc. Nezuko's presence is quiet but seismic. She is the emotional anchor for Tanjiro and a living contradiction to Muzen's ideology. Zenitsu Agatsuma undergoes one of the most dramatic shifts. The cowardly, comic relief of earlier arcs is gone. In his battle against Kaigaku, a former comrade turned demon, Zenitsu is cold, focused and terrifyingly competent. He unveils a self-created seventh form of thunder breathing, born from grief and rage over his master's death. This isn't just a power-up, it's a declaration of identity. Zenitsu's arc is about reclaiming dignity and proving that fear doesn't negate courage. His motivations are deeply personal, and his transformation is a quiet triumph of will over weakness. Inosuke Hashibara, the wild child raised by boars, finds unexpected clarity in the chaos. His instincts remain sharp, but the Infinity Castle forces him to rely on others, to trust and to reflect. His bond with Tanjiro and Zenitsu matures into something unspoken but profound. Inosuke's arc is less about change and more about revelation. He doesn't become someone new, but he finally understands who he is and why he fights. Shinobu Kocho faces Doma, the demon who murdered her sister. Her arc is a slow burn of vengeance masked by serenity. She weaponizes her own body, saturating it with poison, knowing she will die to weaken Doma. Her death is not just a sacrifice, it's a calculated act of defiance. Shinobu's motivations are rooted in grief, but her final moments are a masterclass in resolve. Her relationship with her sister, her quiet mentorship of Kaneo, and her unwavering commitment to justice make her one of the most layered characters in the film. Kaneo Tsuyuri, once emotionally muted, inherits Shinobu's will. Her battle against Doma is not just physical, it's psychological. She fights with rage, with sorrow and with the weight of legacy. Her arc is about breaking free from emotional repression and choosing her own path. The Infinity Castle forces her to confront loss, and she responds with ferocity. Akaza, the antagonist in one of the film's most pivotal battles, is not a one-note villain. His backstory unfolds in fragments, memories of a sickly fiancé, of a life ruined by circumstance. When Tanjiro defeats him, Akaza chooses to die rather than regenerate, a rare act of self-awareness in a demon. His arc is tragic, a meditation on guilt and the remnants of love. Muzen Kibutsuji, the architect of the Infinity Castle, remains a looming presence. His motivations are rooted in fear. Fear of death, of the sun, of losing control. He is less a character and more a force of nature, but even he is shaped by the relationships around him. His manipulation of Neikime, his disdain for the upper moons, and his obsession with Nezuko reveal a fractured psyche beneath the godlike exterior. The relationships in Infinity Castle are not static. They evolve under pressure. Bonds are tested, broken, and reforged. The Hashira fight not just for victory but for each other. The camaraderie among the Demon Slayer Corps becomes a lifeline in the shifting maze. Every clash is personal. Every death reverberates. This is not a story of heroes triumphing over evil. It's a story of people, flawed, grieving, determined, facing the abyss and choosing to stand. The Infinity Castle strips away pretense, leaving only truth. And in that truth the characters find their final form. In Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle, the voice cast does more than just bring their characters to life. They inhabit them. Every scream, whisper, and breath feels like it's been carved from pain, devotion, and raw emotional truth. This isn't simply performance. It's immersion. It's war cries that crack under pressure, silent gasps filled with memory, and final words spoken with the weight of fate pressing down on them. Natsuki Haney as Tanjiro Kamado carries the emotional spine of the film, not by screaming louder or crying harder but through restraint. His voice doesn't just convey sorrow. It lets you feel what it means to mourn while moving forward. In the quiet moments when he speaks to Nezuko or recalls Rengoku or Urokodaki, there's a tremble, a deep internal ache that's never overplayed. But when the battles erupt, when he yells, when he strikes, when he fights Muzan himself, that restrained grief bursts out like a blade finally unsheathed. There's a righteous fury in Haney's delivery, not vengeful but protective. He's not just slaying demons. He's screaming to preserve what's left of his humanity. Akari Kito voicing Nezuko has fewer lines but every word counts. Her vocal work isn't about quantity, it's about impact. The shift in Nezuko's voice, from guttural demon sounds to the warm tone of regained consciousness, is haunting. It marks one of the most subtle, yet emotionally jarring transitions in the film. She is a character constantly on the edge of silence, and Kito uses that to her advantage, filling the space with meaning even when Nezuko says nothing. Hiro Shimano as Zenitsu takes what could easily have been comic relief and turns it into something strikingly tragic. His cowardice, which once brought levity, now feels desperate. His screams are no longer played for laughs, they're cracked and terrified. But when he snaps into his trance-like thunder breathing, there's a transformation. In these moments, Shimano's voice becomes deadly calm, almost eerily serene, capturing the duality of a character who hates fear but was born from it. That tonal flip is hard to nail, but Shimano handles it like a blade through silk. Yoshitsugu Matsuoka as Inosuke continues to inject primal energy into the story, but in the Infinity Castle, even he feels changed. His rage still roars, wild and unfiltered, but there's a new note of desperation underneath. When he finds himself separated, lost, and watching his comrades bleed, there's a tremor, a crack in the beast mask. Matsuoka doesn't lose the character's chaos, he deepens it. He shows us that even wild boars can cry, even if they don't know how. Now the Hashira. This is where the film finds its rawest, most searing performances. Saori Hayami as Shinobu Kocho delivers what might be the most emotionally loaded monologue in the entire film. In her confrontation with Doma, her voice doesn't rise. It floats, deadly and delicate like a blade dipped in venom. She speaks of her sister, of vengeance, of justice with a terrifying calmness. But Hayami lets the sorrow leak through the cracks. There's a breaking point in her final words, and when it comes, it lands like a whisper of death, quiet but unforgettable. Kazuhiro Yamaji voicing Kokushibo steals entire scenes with nothing but his presence. His voice is a blend of ancient dignity and abyssal horror. He speaks like a man who has lived too long, who knows the weight of eternity. His fight with Michiro and the others is laced with philosophical dread. His tone is never manic, never cartoonishly evil. It's mournful, almost weary. This creates a terrifying paradox. A monster who regrets but still kills without pause. Kana Hanazawa as Mitsuri Kenroji brings a painful brightness to the dark. Her voice is filled with compassion and courage, often trembling at the edge of tears, but never collapsing into them. In the thick of battle, when her strength is pushed to the edge, Hanazawa doesn't just shout. She bleeds through her voice, reminding the audience that love, her so-called weakness, is her deepest power. Takahiro Sakurai as Ju Tomioka plays silence with precision. He is the voice of calm amidst devastation. His words are few but weighted. Sakurai gives Ju the feel of a soldier who has buried more than he's saved. In the final acts, when he finally speaks with fire, it's earned, a voice hardened by restraint finally letting go. Then there's Muzan voiced by Toshihiko Seiki. It is not just a villain performance, it is theatrical terror. Seiki's delivery is unhinged in its control. Muzan speaks like a god addressing insects. Every syllable is laced with loathing and supremacy. But it's not loud. His stillness is what terrifies. When he finally fights, when his voice rises, when the monster within cracks open, the transition is horrifying. It's like something ancient and evil waking up beneath the earth. Even the supporting cast, characters like Abanai Himejima and the Upper Moons, are voiced with surgical intensity. No one phones it in. Every performer treats their role as the end of a long, painful journey, because that's what it is. This is the part of the story where everyone knows they might not make it. That fear, that urgency pulses through every line. What makes the voice acting in Infinity Castle so extraordinary is not just its skill but its timing. These actors understand when to hold back and when to break. They understand that in a story about demons, grief and sacrifice, it's not just about shouting louder. It's about knowing how to die with your voice. And in this film many do. The Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle trilogy is not just a visual spectacle. It is an auditory masterclass, largely due to the extraordinary efforts of its voice cast. In a series where every breath, every shout and every whispered despair carries immense weight, the actors are not merely reciting lines. They are embodying the very essence of their characters, elevating the thematic gravity and emotional impact to staggering heights. The tone of the Infinity Castle arc is one of escalating dread and desperation, occasionally pierced by moments of fierce resolve and tragic beauty. And the voice actors navigate this complex emotional landscape with unparalleled skill. Leading the charge, Natsuki Haney as Tenjiro Kamado continues to deliver a performance that anchors the entire narrative. Tenjiro is the empathetic heart of Demon Slayer, and Haney perfectly captures his relentless determination, his unwavering kindness and his raw, visceral pain. In the Infinity Castle, Tenjiro is pushed to his absolute limits, facing an onslaught of powerful demons and witnessing unspeakable horrors. Haney's voice conveys every ounce of Tenjiro's struggle, from his strained grunts of effort during combat to his choked cries of anguish when confronted with loss. His range is astounding, capable of shifting from a desperate, guttural scream to a moment of quiet, heartbroken resolve in an instant. This emotional authenticity ensures that even amidst the chaos, Tenjiro's humanity remains vibrantly alive, drawing the audience deeper into his plight. Akari Kito as Nezuko Kamado, while having fewer lines of dialogue, communicates volumes through her guttural sounds, growls and pained whimpers. Her performance is a testament to the power of nonverbal acting, conveying Nezuko's ferocity, her lingering humanity, and her fierce loyalty without needing extensive dialogue. In the grim atmosphere of the Infinity Castle, Nezuko's brief, fiery outbursts are moments of vital, explosive energy, expertly delivered by Kito to emphasize her unwavering protective instincts. The standout performances, however, truly begin to shine as the Hashira and upper-rank demons take center stage. Hiro Shimano as Zenitsu Agatsuma and Yoshitsugu Matsuoka as Inosuke Hashibara continue their brilliant portrayals, providing crucial moments of levity and unexpected bursts of power. Shimano's Zenitsu, with his characteristic terrified wails and sudden, terrifyingly precise combat prowess, offers a much-needed release valve in the suffocating tension of the castle. His cries of fear are undeniably amusing, but when he shifts into his thunder-breathing state, Shimano's voice transforms into something utterly focused and lethal, emphasizing the duality of the character and making his moments of heroism even more impactful. Matsuoka's Inosuke, with his wild, boastful declarations and surprising moments of vulnerability, adds another layer of dynamic energy. Matsuoka captures Inosuke's animalistic ferocity and unpredictable nature, while also subtly hinting at the deeper emotions that lie beneath his boar mask. As the narrative delves into the upper-rank demons, the voice actors truly become architects of dread and malice. Toshihiko Seiki as Muzan Kibutsuji is chillingly effective. His voice exudes an ancient, cold malevolence, a sinister calm that belies unimaginable power. Every word he utters is laced with a detached cruelty, making him a truly terrifying antagonist. He doesn't need to shout to convey menace. His quiet pronouncements are far more unnerving, solidifying his role as the ultimate evil. The performance of Akira Ishida as Akaza, Upper Rank 3, is particularly gripping. Akaza's character is steeped in tragedy and fierce pride, and Ishida brings this complexity to life. His voice carries the weight of centuries of regret and an almost primal urge to grow stronger, even as his humanity is long gone. The raw emotion he injects into Akaza's every frustrated roar and determined challenge is palpable, especially in his renewed confrontation. Perhaps one of the most anticipated and impactful performances comes from Mamoru Miyano as Doma, Upper Rank 2. Miyano, known for his incredible range, perfectly encapsulates Doma's superficially cheerful yet profoundly sinister persona. His voice is smooth, almost melodic, but beneath the pleasantries lies a chilling emptiness and a casual cruelty that is deeply unsettling. Doma's dialogue, delivered with such an unnerving lack of genuine emotion, makes him one of the most disturbing antagonists, and Miyano's portrayal is a masterclass in conveying unsettling nonchalance in the face of horror. The Hashira, the pillars of the Demon Slayer Corps, are also given ample opportunity to showcase their immense talent. While it's difficult to highlight every single performance in detail across a full trilogy, actors like Katsuyuki Konishi as Tengen Yuzui, even if he has a smaller role in this arc, his presence from previous arcs resonates. Tomokazu Seiki as Sanemi Shinazukawa, and Miyuki Soashiro as Daki, who makes a brief, impactful appearance through flashbacks or mental imagery, contributes significantly to the emotional depth. Seiki's Sanemi, with his gruff, volatile exterior masking a deep, painful history, is conveyed with a raw intensity that is both abrasive and sympathetic. Konishi's Tengen, even in memory or brief appearances, exudes the flamboyant strength and unwavering resolve that defined him. In essence, the voice cast for Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba the movie, Infinity Castle is not simply providing dialogue, they are infusing the characters with soul, breath, and profound emotionality. Their performances are integral to the film's tone and mood, amplifying the grim despair of the setting, the ferocity of the battles, and the deep, abiding humanity that persists even in the face of overwhelming darkness. It is these nuanced and powerful vocalizations that ensure the audience is not just watching a story, but experiencing every devastating blow, every desperate rally, and every flicker of hope alongside these remarkable characters. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the voice cast doesn't merely perform, they embody. The film's tone is steeped in dread and urgency, and the mood is a relentless descent into chaos. Within this crucible, the actors deliver performances that are raw, intimate, and often devastating. The emotional weight of the story hinges on their ability to translate grief, rage, and fleeting hope into sound, and they do so with staggering precision. Natsuki Haney, voicing Tanjiro Kamado, channels a quiet ferocity that anchors the film. His delivery is never overwrought. Instead, it simmers with restrained anguish. In scenes where Tanjiro confronts Akaza, Haney's voice trembles with fury, but it's the moments of silence, his breath catching, his voice cracking, that reveal the depth of Tanjiro's internal conflict. Haney's portrayal captures the paradox of Tanjiro, a warrior driven by vengeance yet still capable of mercy. His performance is the emotional spine of the film. Akari Kito as Nezuko Kamado has fewer lines, but her vocalizations, growls, gasps, and soft murmurs, are hauntingly expressive. Kito's restraint is deliberate. Nezuko's transformation is largely physical, but Kito ensures that her humanity is never lost. In scenes where Nezuko shields Tanjiro or resists her demonic urges, Kito's subtle inflections convey a character torn between instinct and love. Her performance is a masterclass in minimalism. Hiro Shimano, voicing Zenitsu Agatsuma, delivers a revelation. Known for his comedic panic in earlier arcs, Shimano flips the script. In the battle against Kaigaku, his voice is steely, deliberate, and laced with sorrow. The seventh form of thunder breathing isn't just a technique, it's a requiem. Shimano's delivery is filled with grief for his master and contempt for betrayal. His transformation from comic relief to tragic avenger is one of the film's most striking tonal shifts, and Shimano handles it with elegance. Yoshitsugu Matsuoka as Inosuke Hashibara retains the character's wild energy but tempers it with introspection. Matsuoka's voice is still brash and unfiltered, but in quieter scenes there's a softness, a vulnerability that hints at Inosuke's evolving sense of self. His interactions with Tanjiro and Zenitsu are laced with unspoken camaraderie, and Matsuoka's delivery makes those bonds feel earned. Saori Hayami, voicing Shinobu Kocho, delivers a performance that is both chilling and tender. Her voice is calm, almost serene, even as Shinobu prepares for her own death. Hayami's delivery is laced with subtext. Every line carries the weight of her sister's memory, her own pain, and her calculated resolve. In her final confrontation with Doma, Hayami's voice never rises, but the tension is palpable. Her performance is a quiet scream. Reina Ueda as Kaneo Tsuyuri evolves from silence to fury. Ueda's voice work is delicate, almost hesitant at first, reflecting Kaneo's emotional repression. But as the battle intensifies, her voice gains strength, urgency, and heartbreak. Ueda captures the moment Kaneo chooses to feel, and it's devastating. Akira Ishida, voicing Akaza, delivers a standout performance that elevates the film's emotional complexity. Ishida's voice is layered, brutal in combat but mournful in flashbacks. When Akaza recalls his fiancée, Ishida's tone shifts from menace to regret, revealing the remnants of a man buried beneath the demon. His final lines, delivered with quiet resignation, are among the film's most haunting. Mamoru Miyano as Doma is flamboyant and terrifying. His voice dances between charm and cruelty, making Doma's sadism feel almost seductive. Miyano's performance is theatrical but never cartoonish. He captures the horror of a character who kills with a smile and laughs at suffering. The supporting cast, particularly the Hashira, bring gravitas to their roles. Each actor infuses their character with distinct emotional textures: rage, sorrow, hope, despair. Their interactions are not just functional, they're intimate, shaped by shared history and impending doom. The ensemble doesn't just support the leads, they deepen the film's emotional resonance. In Infinity Castle, the voice performances are not embellishments, they are the story. They carry the weight of sacrifice, the sting of betrayal, and the fragile hope that something good might survive the carnage. The actors don't just speak, they bleed. Haruo Sotazaki's direction of Demon Slayer. Infinity Castle is not merely a continuation of the anime's legacy, it's a radical elevation. The film's tone is suffocatingly tense, its mood drenched in dread and desperation, and its storytelling is a masterclass in controlled chaos. Sotazaki doesn't just guide the narrative, he orchestrates a sensory siege. The Infinity Castle itself is a character, and Sotazaki treats it as such. Its architecture is fluid, shifting, and surreal. Walls twist, floors collapse, and gravity bends. This isn't just visual spectacle, it's psychological warfare. The castle's design reflects the fractured mental states of its inhabitants. Sotazaki uses this setting to amplify the mood, claustrophobic, unstable, and hostile. Every corridor is a threat. Every shadow is a memory. Pacing is relentless but deliberate. Sotazaki fragments the narrative into parallel battles, each with its own rhythm and emotional cadence. Tanjiro's duel with Akaza is operatic, slow, heavy, and tragic. Zenitsu's clash with Kaigaku is sharp, staccato, and furious. Shinobu's confrontation with Doma is quiet, eerie, and suffused with fatalism. These tonal shifts are not jarring, they're symphonic. Sotazaki ensures that each beat lands with maximum emotional impact, using silence as effectively as sound. Shot composition is surgical. Close-ups linger on trembling hands, bloodied blades, and eyes that flicker with resolve or fear. Wide shots pull back to reveal the scale of the castle's distortion, making the characters appear small, vulnerable, and isolated. The use of negative space is particularly striking. Characters often stand alone in vast, empty frames, emphasizing their solitude and the enormity of their task.
Lighting is weaponized. Sotazaki bathes scenes in sickly greens, oppressive reds, and ghostly blues. The palette shifts with the emotional temperature of each scene. When Tanjiro enters the transparent world, the colors desaturate, time slows, and the sound design thins to a whisper. It's not just a power-up, it's a metaphysical rupture, and Sotazaki makes you feel it. Narrative vision is uncompromising. Sotazaki doesn't sanitize the brutality of war. Deaths are not heroic, they're painful, messy, and often silent. Shinobu's demise is not a spectacle, it's a slow, calculated act of vengeance. Akaza's final moments are not villainous, they're mournful, reflective, and deeply human. Sotazaki's storytelling is rooted in empathy. He doesn't glorify violence, he interrogates it. Stylistically, The film leans into theatricality without losing authenticity. The choreography is balletic, the camera movements fluid and immersive. Sotozaki often uses long takes during combat, allowing the viewer to feel the exhaustion, the desperation, the stakes. There's a refusal to cut away from pain. When a character falls, the camera stays. When a blade strikes, it lingers. The music, composed by Yuki Kajura and Go Shina, is woven into the fabric of the direction. Sotozaki doesn't use score as background, he uses it as dialogue. Themes swell and recede in tandem with character arcs. Amorous, A World Where the Sun Never Rises, is not just a song, it's a thesis statement, and Sotozaki builds scenes around its emotional resonance. Ultimately, Sotozaki's direction is not about spectacle, it's about truth. The truth of grief, of sacrifice, of the cost of compassion. He doesn't just tell a story, he immerses you in it, forces you to feel every fracture, every scream, every silence. The Infinity Castle is not just a setting, it's a crucible. And Sotozaki is the architect of its torment. In Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle, director Haruo Sotozaki, in seamless collaboration with the powerhouse animation studio Ufotable, orchestrates a masterclass in shaping tone, mood, and storytelling. This trilogy is not just an adaptation, it is a meticulously crafted cinematic experience that leverages unique stylistic choices to amplify every emotional beat and every brutal confrontation. The impact of the film is not merely in its narrative, but in how that narrative is visually and orally presented, immersing the audience in a world on the brink of collapse. One of the most striking stylistic choices is Ufotable's unparalleled blend of traditional 2D animation with advanced 3D CGI. This isn't a jarring contrast, it's a harmonious fusion that allows for dynamic camera movements and breathtaking environmental effects. When characters traverse the impossibly shifting corridors of the Infinity Castle, the sense of disorientation and overwhelming scale is achieved through expertly rendered 3D environments that constantly twist and turn. The camera isn't static, it swoops, dives, and spins, mimicking the characters' frantic movements and the castle's unpredictable nature. This fluid camera work, reminiscent of a live-action film, pulls the viewer directly into the heart of the action, creating a visceral sense of being trapped within Musen's domain. The intricate details of the castle, from its ornate traditional Japanese architecture to its endless, Escher-like corridors, are brought to life with a sense of eerie grandeur that sets a chilling mood. The pacing in Infinity Castle is a relentless surge. From the opening moments, there's an immediate sense of urgency and escalating stakes. The film doesn't linger, it throws the characters directly into dire situations, mirroring the manga's intense final arc. Sotozaki understands that this is the climactic battle, and the narrative sprints forward, prioritizing high-stakes confrontations and rapid-fire developments. While previous arcs might have allowed for more contemplative moments, the Infinity Castle arc, by its very nature, demands a breakneck pace. This tight pacing ensures that the emotional impact of each blow and each sacrifice is immediate and profound. There's little room to breathe, a deliberate choice that mirrors the character's own desperate fight for survival. Shot composition plays a pivotal role in shaping the film's tone. Close-ups are frequently employed during moments of intense emotion or pain, allowing the audience to witness the raw agony, determination, or despair on a character's face. When a Hashira unleashes a devastating technique, the camera often focuses on their unwavering gaze or the strain in their muscles, emphasizing their immense power and resolve. Conversely, wide shots are used to convey the sheer scale of the battles and the overwhelming power of the upper-ranked demons. The sight of a lone demon slayer against a monstrous demon within the vast, twisting expanse of the Infinity Castle immediately communicates the immense odds they face. The dynamic angles, often from a low perspective looking up at the towering figures of the demons or the graceful movements of the slayers, imbue the action with a sense of grandeur and epic scale. Furthermore, Sotozaki's narrative vision for Infinity Castle is one of unwavering fidelity to the source material, yet with an enhanced cinematic flair. While the dialogue may sometimes feel like a direct transcription from the manga, particularly during exposition or internal monologues, it is delivered with such conviction by the voice cast and accompanied by such impactful visuals that it rarely detracts from the experience. Instead, it serves to reinforce the characters' inner struggles and motivations. The director's choice to adapt this arc as a trilogy of films rather than an extended TV season speaks volumes about the commitment to fully realize its scope and impact. This allows for an uncompromised level of animation detail and a sustained sense of grandeur that a weekly episodic format might struggle to maintain. The use of color and lighting is another hallmark of Ufotable's work, and Sotozaki maximizes its effect in Infinity Castle. The castle itself is often shrouded in deep blues, purples, and blacks, creating a pervasive sense of gloom and mystery. Yet, within this darkness, the vibrant hues of the breathing techniques, the fiery reds of flame breathing, the swirling blues of water breathing, the dazzling yellows of thunder breathing, erupt with breathtaking brilliance. These visual explosions not only highlight the superhuman abilities of the demon slayers, but also act as symbolic bursts of hope and defiance against the encroaching darkness. The stark contrast between the vibrant powers and the oppressive environment amplifies the visual spectacle and underscores the theme of light battling shadow. The sound design, too, is meticulously crafted to enhance the mood. Every sword clash, every demonic shriek, every grunt of effort is rendered with crystal clarity and bone-rattling intensity. The ambient sounds of the shifting castle, the distant echoes of battle, and the unnerving quiet of its desolate sections contribute significantly to the immersive and anxiety-inducing atmosphere. Yuki Kajura and Go Shina's musical score is another crucial element, seamlessly transitioning from melancholic and somber pieces that underscore moments of tragedy to exhilarating, pulse-pounding battle anthems that elevate the action to operatic heights. The music is not merely background noise, it is an active participant in shaping the emotional trajectory of each scene. In essence, Haruo Sotozaki, with Ufotable as his artistic conduit, doesn't just direct Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle. He sculpts an immersive, intense, and emotionally resonant experience. His stylistic choices, the dynamic camera, the relentless pacing, the stunning visual composition, and the unwavering commitment to a grand, impactful narrative, transform a crucial manga arc into a cinematic spectacle that leaves an indelible mark on the audience, drawing them deep into the heart of the final, desperate battle against the forces of night. Haruo Sotozaki does not direct Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle like a conventional animated film. He conducts it like a visual opera of death, memory, and transcendence. Every frame is curated to feel like both a fever dream and a sacred ritual. He knows the world he's handling, one built on myth, grief, vengeance, and fleeting hope, and he approaches it not with restraint, but with precision. This is not a film about good versus evil. It is about what remains after hope has been crushed, and Sotozaki's direction never lets the audience forget that. Tone and mood. From the first moment, the haunting silence before Musen's assault, the tone is set. Sotozaki shrouds the film in unease, never allowing the audience to settle. Characters enter scenes already breathing heavily, already worn down, as if the battle has begun long before the screen caught up. There's no sense of calm. Not even in the quieter moments. The quiet is the dread. What's masterful is how Sotozaki allows that dread to expand and contract. He plays with the emotional frequency. Moments of beauty, the glimmering snowfall inside the Infinity Castle, the soft glow of memories, the warmth of a sibling's voice, flicker in the middle of horror. But they're fleeting. He doesn't let the film bask in serenity. The serenity exists to make the violence hit harder. Shot composition and visual framing. Sotozaki composes the Infinity Castle like a living organism. Walls twist and curve like ribs. Staircases spiral into oblivion. There's a sense that every fight is being watched by the castle itself. Characters are framed in wide-angle shots that emphasize how alone they are, swallowed by towering architecture, cornered by lightless corridors, framed by the gaping mouths of the unknown. But he also knows when to compress the space. In the Shinobu vs. Doma sequence, the shots are tight, suffocating, drenched in cold whites and blues. The colors become thematic. When Michiro faces Kokoshibo, the space is surreal, a floating, dimensionless arena where blood paints the sky. In these moments, Sotozaki lets the backgrounds vanish, forcing attention to fall entirely on movement, rhythm, and fear. Every fight has a unique visual identity. That's not just aesthetic, it's narrative. Sotozaki directs combat not just as spectacle, but as character dissection. The way a character moves, the way the camera follows or resists them, reveals who they are at their core. Zenitsu's speed is portrayed as flashes of light that the frame can barely hold. Ju's calm is mirrored in long, fluid tracking shots. Mitsuri's agility is accentuated through sweeping crane-like motion, her body arcing through the air like a brushstroke. Pacing and rhythm. This is not a film with a beginning, middle, and end. It's a storm. And Sotozaki doesn't apologize for that. The pacing is relentless by design, a series of crescendos stacked on each other, yet somehow it never collapses. That's because the rhythm is intelligent. The film breathes in memory and exhales in violence. Sotozaki intercuts long battles with flickers of backstory, hallucinations, quiet flashbacks. But these aren't detours. They are detonations. For example, in the middle of a brutal sword clash, a cut to a childhood memory doesn't slow the action, it fuels it. It reframes what's at stake. It turns every strike into catharsis or desperation. That's how Sotozaki turns traditional anime pacing on its head, not by doing less, but by folding time into emotion. Stylistic choices that enhance the experience. The biggest triumph of Sotozaki's vision lies in how he marries the emotional world of the characters with the visual language of the film. Infinity Castle is not just a place, it's a manifestation of Musen's cruelty. The way the floor falls out beneath a character during a moment of fear. The way a corridor elongates when someone runs toward hope. The geometry of the castle changes based on narrative stakes. That's not an accident. That's direction. Another bold stylistic choice is the use of lighting and shadow as mood language. When Shinobu confronts Doma, her face is often half-lit, beauty juxtaposed with death. Musen, when he enters a room, brings a wave of blackness with him. Even sound follows this logic. Sotozaki often drops the score entirely right before a key emotional blow, making the silence unbearable. Then, a single note or breath, and the world crashes back in. Then there's the musical timing. Sotozaki syncs character movement with the pulse of the score, but not always predictably. He allows scenes to fall out of sync, to jar the audience, then realigns them during critical moments, a sword strike landing exactly as a violin rises, a scream silenced by the drop of a drum. This technique pulls the viewer deeper into the moment. It's visceral, subconscious, unshakable. Narrative vision. This film doesn't simply tell a story. It reveals a collapse. Sotozaki doesn't hide from despair. He steers the film into it, using the collapse of the Infinity Castle as a metaphor for everything crumbling, tradition, stability, the hierarchy of demons and demon slayers, even the character's sense of identity. And yet, he doesn't drown the film in nihilism. He threads a quiet reverence for those who continue to fight even after they've lost everything. He makes one thing painfully clear. This is not a story about how people die. It's about why they choose to die, and what they leave behind when they do. Sotozaki doesn't spell that out. He doesn't explain it. He shows it. Through movement. Through silence. Through architecture that disorients and poetry that pierces. Through faces lit by flame and eyes filled with ghosts. That's what elevates Infinity Castle. It isn't just told. It's directed like a lament sung through blade and breath. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the editing is not just a technical craft, it's a narrative weapon. The film's tone is grim and unrelenting, its mood steeped in dread and urgency, and the rhythm of its storytelling is calibrated to mirror the psychological descent of its characters. Editor Manabu Kamino doesn't merely stitch scenes together. He sculpts time, emotion, and tension into a relentless cascade of moments that refuse to let the audience breathe. Transitions are fluid but never predictable. The Infinity Castle itself, a shifting, sentient labyrinth, becomes the perfect canvas for disorienting cuts and spatial ruptures. One moment, Tanjiro is locked in combat with Akaza. The next, the floor collapses and the scene pivots to Zenitsu's confrontation with Kaigaku. These transitions are not jarring, they're strategic. They mimic the castle's instability and the fractured mental states of the characters. The editing leans into this chaos, using match cuts, whip pans, and dissolves that blur the line between physical space and emotional trauma. Pacing is a study in contrasts. The film opens with a rapid descent into the castle, a sequence of quick cuts and escalating tension that throws the viewer into the maelstrom. But once inside, the rhythm shifts. Battles unfold in long, deliberate takes that emphasize exhaustion and resolve. Shinobu's confrontation with Doma is a slow burn. Each frame lingers, each movement is deliberate, and the editing stretches time to reflect her calculated sacrifice. In contrast, Zenitsu's duel is a lightning storm of cuts, each one timed to the beat of his thunder breathing. The rhythm here is not just visual, it's musical, choreographed to the cadence of emotion. The emotional impact of the editing is most evident in the film's silences. Kamino knows when to pull back. After Akaza's defeat, the screen holds on his final smile for just a beat too long. It's uncomfortable, intimate, and devastating. These moments of stillness punctuate the chaos, allowing grief to settle and meaning to crystallize. The rhythm of the film is not constant. It pulses, recoils, and surges, mirroring the characters' internal journeys. Narratively, the editing reinforces the theme of fragmentation. The Demon Slayer Corps is scattered, each member isolated in their own battle. The film jumps between these threads with precision, never losing coherence. The transitions are emotional bridges. Zenitsu's rage bleeds into Inosuke's confusion, which then flows into Kaneo's fury. The editing creates a tapestry of suffering and resistance, stitching together disparate arcs into a unified emotional crescendo. Ultimately, the film's flow is a reflection of its soul. It doesn't move linearly, it spirals, fractures, and rebuilds. The editing doesn't just maintain engagement, it demands it. Every cut is a choice. Every transition is a revelation. And every beat of the rhythm is a heartbeat, sometimes erratic, sometimes steady, but always human. The cinematic flow of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle is a masterclass in controlled chaos, a tightly wound spring that, once released, propels the audience through a relentless gauntlet of emotion and action. Director Haruo Sotozaki, in perfect synchronicity with Ufotable's animation and editorial teams, crafts a rhythm that is both dynamic and deliberate, ensuring that the film's high-stakes narrative maintains an almost suffocating level of engagement from its jarring opening to its climactic, exhausting conclusion. There are virtually no moments where the pacing drags. Instead, the film operates on a constant hum of tension, frequently erupting into explosive bursts of combat. The film's flow is defined by its rapid-fire sequence of events, mirroring the desperate urgency of the Infinity Castle arc itself. From the moment the Demon Slayers are plunged into Musen's shifting dimension, the editing creates near-seamless transitions between disparate battlegrounds and character perspectives. This isn't a film that leisurely cuts from one scene to the next. It's a series of rapid shifts, often utilizing quick fades or sudden cuts that follow the trajectory of a falling character or the impact of a devastating blow. This technique ensures that even as the narrative branches out to follow multiple simultaneous battles, the audience never loses the overarching sense of chaotic simultaneity. It feels like a real-time war, with skirmishes occurring concurrently across the vast, ever-changing landscape of the castle. The rhythm of the film is largely dictated by its primary objective, the final, all-out war against Musen and his upper ranks. Consequently, the flow is predominantly one of intense, sustained action punctuated by brief, impactful moments of character introspection or poignant flashbacks. These quieter moments, rather than creating a drag, serve as vital breaths, allowing the emotional weight of the preceding chaos to settle. They are meticulously placed, often triggered by a character's near-death experience or a memory that fuels their resolve, and they are quickly woven back into the high-octane flow of combat. For instance, a character facing a seemingly insurmountable foe might briefly recall a teaching or a loved one, and this memory is presented as a rapid, almost subliminal cut, immediately feeding back into their renewed determination to fight. This rhythmic interplay between breakneck action and concise emotional beats ensures that the film is constantly moving forward, yet never feels emotionally shallow. The editing contributes significantly to the film's relentless rhythm and emotional impact through its ability to control tension. Long takes are rare, reserved for moments of grand visual spectacle or sustained emotional agony. More often, the cuts are swift and precise, particularly during combat sequences. When a Hashira is engaging an upper rank, the editing often oscillates between wide shots that capture the scale of their movements, medium shots that highlight the intricate swordplay, and extreme close-ups on eyes filled with fury or gritted teeth. This rapid-fire editing during action sequences creates a kinetic energy that is exhilarating and exhausting, mimicking the speed and brutality of the fight itself. It pulls the audience into the exchange, making every parry, every thrust, and every demon art feel immediate and impactful. Furthermore, the sound design is seamlessly integrated with the film's editing to enhance its rhythm. The absence of sound in certain moments, or the sudden amplification of a particular clang or shriek, is used to punctuate critical narrative beats. A sudden unsettling silence before a demon's attack, followed by an explosion of sound as the battle erupts, is a common and highly effective technique. This auditory rhythm works in concert with the visual flow, guiding the audience's emotional response and maintaining constant engagement. While the film primarily maintains a high-octane pace, there's a deliberate shift in rhythm when focusing on the vulnerabilities and psychological struggles of the characters. These are not slow, lingering scenes. They are often compressed bursts of trauma or determination. For example, when a character is overwhelmed or injured, the camera might slow down briefly, focusing on their labored breathing or trembling hands, before immediately snapping back to the urgency of the fight. This ebb and flow, while still fast-paced, allows for crucial emotional resonance without sacrificing the overall propulsive momentum. The narrative vision clearly prioritizes impact. The flow is designed to feel like a siege, an unyielding push towards a singular, terrifying goal. This means that scenes are often cut to their absolute essence, removing any extraneous fat and focusing squarely on driving the plot and escalating the tension. There's no time for casual dialogue or extended expository scenes. The information is conveyed through character reactions, intense exchanges, and the visually stunning portrayal of their abilities. This focused approach means that every cut, every transition, feels intentional and purposeful, contributing directly to the film's dominant themes of sacrifice, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of victory against overwhelming odds. The rhythm is thus tightly controlled, a pulse that quickens with danger and slows only momentarily for the audience, and the characters, to catch their breath before the next harrowing confrontation. The flow of Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle is unlike anything you'd expect from a typical action-driven anime film. It's not a steady stream. It's not a simple rise and fall. It's a series of violent surges and sudden silences, a rhythm that mirrors the instability of the world the characters are thrown into. The film doesn't follow the comfort of linear escalation. Instead, it breathes with the chaos of battle, grief, memory, and myth. And the editing is the heartbeat that makes it all pulse. The first cut, from Kagaya's still face in a candlelit room to the fiery explosion that tears it apart, sets the tone. Transitions in this film aren't just scene changes. They're emotional detonations. The editing embraces rupture. There are moments where the film slams into a new sequence without warning, and it's disorienting, deliberately so. The Infinity Castle itself is built to confuse and isolate, and the editing mirrors that geography. Rooms appear with a flicker. Characters fall through space without transition. A peaceful moment can vanish mid-sentence into a kill-or-be-killed scenario. But these are not editing mistakes. This fractured pacing is strategic. When Michiro's fight begins, there is no clear marker, no start. He's simply dropped into a void, face-to-face with Kokushibo. The cut into this battle isn't gradual. It's like being plunged underwater, the sound and visuals overwhelming, and just when you adjust, it changes again. The editing forces the viewer to experience what the characters feel, total dislocation. Yet, amid the chaos, there is craft, and more importantly, rhythm. The film is long, nearly 2.5 hours, and yet it rarely loses grip on momentum. This is achieved not through constant action, but through contrast. The editors, led by Masato Yoshitake, understand that war is not one continuous scream. It is waves of terror and silence. They give the film a rhythmic structure built around tension and release. During intense fight sequences, the cuts are tight, sometimes even frantic. Blades clash, breathing styles activate, blood flies, and the edits keep us close. But right before a killing blow or a critical reveal, the film pulls back. A long pause. A slow zoom. A freeze-frame echo of a character's face as they remember why they fight. This slow rhythm keeps the emotional core alive. One standout technique is the echo edit, a brief replay of a visual from a slightly different angle, just after a major event. This happens when Shinobu is pierced by Doma, when Michiro's sword hits flesh, and when Tanjiro sees Muzan for the first time. Instead of moving forward, the film lingers, as if even time itself is reluctant to continue. These edits force the viewer to sit in the moment, to feel the cost. Not just to see what happens, but to experience what it means. Still, there are moments where the pacing strains under its own weight. Some middle sections, especially when shifting between battles, feel elongated, not due to lack of content, but because the emotional stakes are so high that even minor scenes are dense. The editing tries to manage this by staggering emotional climaxes, but there's no denying the heaviness of the film's middle third. It's like a battlefield, bodies everywhere, momentum unsure, air thick with fatigue. This is the part where some viewers may feel overwhelmed, but that, too, seems intentional. Infinity Castle is not a place of rest. There are no smooth transitions in war. When the film begins to narrow its focus again toward Tanjiro and Muzan, the editing subtly shifts. Cuts become more fluid. Time starts to stretch. Sequences flow with greater cohesion. This is where the emotional resolution begins to gather, and the editors use that flow to signal a kind of convergence, the scattered fragments of the story aligning for the final descent. But even then, the film resists neatness. It ends not with closure, but with fragmentation. The final edits are abrupt, not confusing, but emotionally raw. There's no traditional winding down. No slow pullback. Instead, there are cuts to aftermath. A hand on a sword, a gasp in the dark, eyes wide with something between hope and horror. This editing philosophy, this rhythm of rupture and resonance, is what gives Infinity Castle its emotional impact. The film doesn't just show death, grief, and sacrifice. It cuts into it. It lets scenes bleed into one another, lets sound carry over between timelines, lets memory overwrite action. The film flows like the collapsing corridors of the castle itself, not smoothly, but meaningfully. Not with clarity, but with conviction. It is the editing that stitches together the chaos and makes it cinematic. It is the rhythm of a battle hymn, erratic, violent, beautiful, and devastating. The Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle trilogy, far from being a mere spectacle of combat, delves into a profound tapestry of human experience, exploring universal themes that resonate deeply without ever feeling forced or didactic. The grim tone and desperate mood of the film perfectly serve to underscore these messages, making their impact all the more potent. One of the most overarching and powerfully communicated themes is the fragility and preciousness of human life in the face of insurmountable evil. The Infinity Castle arc unflinchingly portrays the brutal reality of the Demon Slayer Corps' mission. Casualties are not just statistics, they are individuals with dreams, families, and sacrifices. The deaths of key characters, particularly certain Hashira and beloved supporting figures, are handled with a raw, heartbreaking emotional depth. We witness their final moments, their regrets, their last acts of defiance. This isn't a sanitized battle. It's a war of attrition where every life lost is a heavy blow, emphasizing that each breath, each moment of humanity, is something to be fiercely protected. The thematic impact is a somber reminder of mortality and the immense cost of fighting for a better world. Connected to this is the profound theme of sacrifice. The film showcases sacrifice in myriad forms, the ultimate sacrifice of life, the sacrifice of personal desires for the greater good, and the sacrifice of one's own well-being to protect others. Shinobu Kocho's confrontation with Doma, for instance, is a poignant illustration of premeditated, selfless sacrifice, where her very existence becomes a weapon to ensure another's victory. Similarly, the unwavering dedication of the Hashira, who knowingly walk into a death trap in the Infinity Castle, speaks volumes about their commitment to humanity. These acts of selflessness are not presented as grand, glorious martyrdoms, but as grim necessities driven by an unshakable sense of duty and love for those they protect. The film effectively communicates that true strength often lies not just in power, but in the willingness to lay down one's life for a cause greater than oneself. Another pivotal theme is the enduring power of human connection and empathy, even in the darkest of times. Despite the brutal battles and the pervasive despair, the bonds between Tanjiro, Nezuko, Zenitsu, and Inosuke remain a guiding light. Their unwavering loyalty and mutual support are what truly set them apart from the demons. Even within the Hashira, who might seem stoic and formidable, their shared history, their quiet understanding, and their collective grief bind them together.
Tanjiro, with his unique ability to empathize with demons and understand their past suffering, consistently highlights the thin, yet crucial, line between humanity and monstrousness. This theme suggests that even those consumed by evil were once human, capable of love and sorrow, and that retaining one's empathy is crucial to maintaining one's humanity. It's a thought-provoking idea that challenges the simplistic notion of good versus evil. The film also explores the concept of legacy and inheritance. The Demon Slayers are not fighting in a vacuum, they are carrying on a centuries-old struggle. The narrative frequently delves into the pasts of both humans and demons, revealing how their choices and actions echo through generations. The importance of passing down knowledge, techniques, and even wills is a recurring motif. Characters draw strength from the sacrifices of their predecessors and are driven by the desire to fulfill their ancestors' dreams. This is particularly evident in the lineage of the breathing styles and the history surrounding Musen's origins. This theme leaves a lasting impression by emphasizing that the fight against evil is a continuous struggle, and each generation builds upon the efforts and sacrifices of those who came before. Finally, the film powerfully explores the theme of resilience and the human spirit's capacity for growth and adaptation. The demon slayers, particularly Tanjiro, are constantly pushed to their absolute limits, both physically and emotionally. They face overwhelming odds, endure agonizing pain, and witness unimaginable horrors. Yet, they consistently find the strength to rise again, to innovate, and to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. This resilience isn't portrayed as a sudden, magical power-up, but as the result of relentless training, unwavering determination, and the deep emotional connections that anchor them. The transformations and advancements in their abilities feel earned, a testament to their unwavering spirit rather than a convenient plot device. This theme delivers a potent message about the indomitable nature of the human will to survive and fight for what is right, even when hope seems a distant dream. These themes are woven into the very fabric of Infinity Castle's narrative, manifesting in character motivations, visual storytelling, and the emotional resonance of key scenes. They are not delivered through heavy-handed exposition but emerge organically from the characters' struggles and sacrifices. The grim and desperate mood of the film only serves to amplify these messages, making the moments of courage, empathy, and resilience shine brighter against the backdrop of pervasive darkness, leaving a lasting and profound impression on the audience. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the deeper themes are not whispered, they are screamed through blood, silence, and sacrifice. The film's tone is bleak, its mood suffused with dread and defiance, and its thematic architecture is built on the ruins of hope. Haruo Sotozaki doesn't just explore ideas, he weaponizes them. The fragility of humanity is a constant refrain. The Demon Slayer Corps are not invincible warriors, they are broken people clinging to purpose. Tanjiro's compassion is not naivete, it's resistance. His refusal to dehumanize his enemies, even as they slaughter his comrades, is a radical act. The film asks, what does it mean to remain human in a world that rewards cruelty? Through Tanjiro, it answers, humanity is not weakness. It's the last line of defense. Sacrifice as transformation is another core theme. Shinobu Kocho's death is not a tragic loss, it's a calculated metamorphosis. She turns her body into poison, knowing she will die so that Kaneo can live. Her sacrifice is not romanticized, it's brutal, painful, and necessary. The film doesn't flinch. It shows that transformation often requires destruction. Shinobu's arc becomes a thesis on legacy. What we leave behind is not our name, but our will. The duality of strength and vulnerability pulses through every frame. Zenitsu, once a caricature of cowardice, becomes a storm. His seventh form of thunder breathing is not just a technique, it's grief incarnate. His strength is born from vulnerability, and the film makes no attempt to separate the two. Inosuke, wild and untamed, finds clarity not in solitude but in connection. The message is clear. Strength is not the absence of fear, it's the ability to act despite it. The corruption of immortality is embodied in Musen Kibutsuji. He is not a god, he is a terrified creature clawing at eternity. His obsession with Nezuko, his manipulation of Neikime, his disdain for the upper moons, all stem from fear. The film strips away his grandeur and reveals a hollow core. Immortality, it suggests, is not salvation, it's stagnation. Musen's refusal to die becomes a metaphor for the refusal to change, to grow, to feel. Memory as resistance is woven into the narrative structure. Akaza's flashbacks are not exposition, they are ruptures. They interrupt the violence with tenderness, forcing the audience to confront the humanity buried beneath monstrosity. When Akaza chooses death over regeneration, it's not a defeat, it's a reclamation. The film argues that memory is not passive, it's a weapon. To remember is to resist erasure. The burden of legacy weighs heavily on every character. Kaneo inherits Shinobu's will. Tanjiro carries Rengoku's flame. Zenitsu fights for a master who is already gone. The film doesn't treat legacy as inspiration. It treats it as pressure, as responsibility, as a haunting. The characters are not free, they are bound by promises made to the dead. And yet, they fight. Not to escape the past, but to honor it. Empathy in warfare is perhaps the film's most radical idea. In a genre defined by spectacle, Infinity Castle dares to slow down. It lingers on dying breaths, on trembling hands, on eyes that see too much. It refuses to let violence be clean. Every battle is personal. Every death is felt. The film doesn't glorify combat, it mourns it. And in that mourning, it finds meaning. These themes are not forced, they are embedded in the DNA of the film. They emerge organically from character choices, visual metaphors, and narrative structure. The thought-provoking ideas don't just linger, they haunt. Infinity Castle doesn't ask for admiration. It demands introspection. It's not a story about slaying demons. It's a story about what it costs to stay human in a world that wants you to forget. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle is not just about demons and swords. Beneath the flame-etched blade techniques, the acrobatic battles, and the bursts of blood and color, the film is reaching for something far more human, and far more devastating. It's a meditation on mortality, legacy, sacrifice, and the haunting cost of purpose. It doesn't ask you to root for heroes. It asks you to understand why they still fight when there's nothing left to win. The most central theme, woven through every confrontation and every death, is the idea of sacrifice without guarantee. There is no promise of survival. No assurance that good will triumph. And yet, the characters charge forward, not because they believe in victory, but because they believe in duty. And duty, in this world, is not noble. It's a burden. It crushes. The Hashira, the Slayers, even the youngest of fighters, they all move as if they've already accepted the end. That quiet resignation isn't pessimism. It's a recognition of reality. This is why the film spends so much time in silence. Why it lets characters linger on memories, why it cuts to ghostly echoes of childhoods lost and promises made to the dead. Because the real war is not between slayers and demons, it's between memory and oblivion. The Infinity Castle, in that sense, becomes more than a battleground. It's a metaphor for grief, constructed of impossible geometry and endless descent. A place where the past and present collapse into each other, where every room forces a reckoning with personal ghosts. One of the most powerful ideas the film explores is that strength does not exist without pain. Every technique mastered, every demon slain, is born out of suffering. Tanjiro's blade is sharpened by the deaths he's witnessed. Shinobu's poison is cultivated from the trauma of her sister's murder. Michiro's calm is forged in the fire of loss. Even the demons, grotesque and brutal as they are, often originate from despair twisted into hate. The line between what they are and what the Slayers could become if they broke is agonizingly thin. This isn't just character backstory. It's a philosophical underpinning, the idea that power is not a blessing in this world. It is the residue of ruin. Then there's the theme of legacy, not in the grand heroic sense, but in the intimate, familial one. The film is haunted by those who came before. Rengoku's death is still felt like a pulse beneath the surface. Urokadaki's teachings echo through Tanjiro's every breath. The memory of Kane fuels Shinobu's rage. These aren't nostalgia beats. They're reminders that the living are never fighting alone. Even when the battlefield empties and the screams die down, the choices made by the dead still shape the fight. The film argues that legacy is not just a name carried forward, it's a wound, a lesson, a promise that someone must fulfill even if they don't survive doing so. And through all of this, Infinity Castle repeatedly asks one harrowing question. What does it mean to be human in a world drowning in death? Not just biologically, spiritually, emotionally. Muzan, for all his monstrous power, is the embodiment of a being that has shed humanity. He fears death so much that he becomes death itself. He devours, infects, controls. But the Slayers, the fragile mortals with no immortality and no backup, continue to fight, because they choose to embrace death with meaning. That is the core tension of the story. Eternity versus mortality, and the strange, beautiful defiance of choosing to burn brightly for a short time rather than live forever in shadow. These ideas don't feel forced because the film never lectures. It bleeds its themes into the action, into the pauses between attacks, into the looks exchanged across collapsing floors and burning hallways. There are no long speeches about good and evil. There are last breaths. There are broken voices. There are hands that tremble as they reach for blades one more time. Even love, often so romanticized in anime, is reframed here as a kind of defiant tenderness. Mitsuri fights with emotion that others mistake for weakness. But the film insists that emotion is not a flaw. It is armor. It is the fuel that makes her swing her blade harder, cry louder, stand longer than she should. Love, in this world, isn't soft. It's a kind of war cry. Finally, Infinity Castle challenges the idea of victory. There is no celebration. Every win is a loss in disguise. Every defeated demon leaves behind a trail of broken bodies and shattered resolve. The characters don't triumph, they endure. And that endurance, the film seems to say, is the most human thing of all. These themes land hard because they are embedded into the very fabric of the film's style. The disjointed pacing, the shifting perspectives, the way scenes of slaughter are interrupted by tender flashbacks, the way silence often says more than any line of dialogue. Haruo Sotazaki's direction doesn't just tell you what matters. It makes you feel what matters, through rhythm, color, music, memory. And when the final moments arrive, what remains is not just a story of heroes and demons. What remains is an ache. A sense that something precious has been given up. And something important has been preserved, not through survival, but through sacrifice. That is the film's deepest message. That meaning lives in the choices we make when everything else is falling apart. The dialogue in Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle is a fascinating blend of the precise, the emotionally resonant, and the occasionally theatrical, all meticulously crafted to serve the film's relentless pace and grim, high-stakes tone. While it doesn't aim for conventional conversational realism, it is undeniably engaging and, at its most impactful, deeply memorable, acting as a crucial conduit for the film's pervasive emotional weight and thematic depth. One of the defining characteristics of the dialogue is its efficiency. In a film largely driven by continuous, brutal combat and rapid-fire character movements, there's little room for extraneous chatter. Every line, every shouted command, and every internal monologue is designed to either advance the plot, deepen character motivation, or convey the immense emotional strain of the ongoing war. This ensures that even when exposition is delivered, it feels purposeful and integrated into the heightened reality of the narrative. The script doesn't waste words, which contributes significantly to the feeling of constant urgency and the lack of dragging moments. However, where the dialogue truly shines is in its capacity for emotional weight. The script is rife with moments that hit with profound impact, often delivered by characters facing their mortality or confronting the essence of their existence. When a Hashira faces down an upper rank, their exchanges are not merely boasts. They are clashes of ideology, declarations of unwavering resolve, or bitter laments of past tragedies. These lines often encapsulate the very themes of the film: sacrifice, the weight of legacy, and the indomitable human spirit. For instance, lines spoken in the heat of battle, such as a Hashira proclaiming their absolute dedication to their duty even as they are on the brink of collapse, carry immense emotional resonance. These aren't just battle cries, they are manifestations of their entire being, forged through years of suffering and training. The script frequently uses direct, declarative statements to convey this resolve, making their conviction undeniable. The tone is consistently serious during these exchanges, reflecting the life or death stakes. Furthermore, the dialogue excels at articulating the internal struggles of the characters, particularly during their most vulnerable moments. Tanjiro's internal monologues, for example, are crucial. They provide a window into his unwavering empathy, his pain, and his absolute refusal to give up. While not always natural in a conversational sense, these internal reflections are deeply effective at communicating his character's core values and the emotional burden he carries. They are impactful because they reveal the quiet strength that underpins his actions. The script also contains moments of sharp, if sometimes understated, wit, primarily through the dynamic between Zenitsu and Inosuke. Zenitsu's panicked outbursts and dramatic laments, while often comedic, also serve to highlight the sheer terror of their situation, making his moments of bravery all the more striking. Inosuke's boastful, often nonsensical declarations provide a burst of chaotic energy. While not witty in a sophisticated sense, their interactions offer brief, valuable emotional reprieves in the otherwise suffocating tension, adding a touch of naturalistic absurdity that humanizes the group. These moments prevent the grim tone from becoming utterly oppressive. As for standout lines that define the film, they often come at moments of ultimate challenge or profound realization. A character's defiant declaration of their mission's purpose, even when staring down certain death, embodies the film's central theme of unwavering resolve. Similarly, the upper ranks dialogue often reveals the twisted logic of their existence, their superiority complex, or the lingering echoes of their human past, making their villainy more complex and therefore more compelling. Muzan Kibutsuji's pronouncements, delivered with chilling calm, always carry a weighty, ancient malice that defines his character as the ultimate evil. His words are designed to instill despair, and they are often memorable for their cold precision. In essence, while the dialogue in Infinity Castle might not always mimic everyday speech, its strength lies in its ability to be intensely engaging, profoundly emotionally weighty, and, at critical junctures, truly memorable. It's a script that understands its purpose: to propel a desperate narrative, deepen the audience's connection to its suffering heroes, and deliver impactful thematic punches through every meticulously crafted word. It effectively communicates the despair, the courage, and the unwavering spirit that define this climactic chapter of the Demon Slayer saga. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the dialogue is not merely functional. It's a conduit for emotional devastation, philosophical tension, and character revelation. The tone is somber and urgent, the mood saturated with dread and resolve, and the writing reflects a world where every word could be a last. The script doesn't rely on exposition, it breathes through subtext, silence, and the weight of what's left unsaid. Tanjiro Kamado's lines are steeped in empathy and conviction. His exchanges with Akaza are particularly memorable, not because they're verbose, but because they're surgical. When Akaza questions his compassion, Tanjiro responds with a line that defines his ethos: kindness is strength. If you can't see that, then I'll show you. It's not a platitude, it's a challenge, a declaration, and a moral stance. His dialogue often juxtaposes brutality with grace, reinforcing the theme that humanity is not weakness, but resistance. Zenitsu Agatsuma's transformation is echoed in his speech. Gone are the panicked outbursts, in their place, a chilling calm. When facing Kaigaku, he delivers a line that reverberates through the film: "You betrayed our master. I created a form he never taught, because I refused to forget him." It's not just a rebuke, it's a eulogy, a manifesto, and a moment of self-definition. The sharpness of his words mirrors the precision of his blade. Shinobu Kocho's final confrontation with Doma is laced with quiet venom. Her voice remains serene, but her words cut deeper than any blade. "I don't need to be stronger than you. I only need to be poisonous enough." It's a line that encapsulates her strategy, her grief, and her defiance. Her dialogue is a study in restraint, every syllable is calculated, every pause deliberate. Akaza's flashbacks introduce a different rhythm. His human memories are tender, fragmented, and poetic. In one haunting moment, he recalls his fiancée Koyuki saying, "You don't have to fight the world. Just live." This line, echoed in his final moments, becomes a thematic fulcrum. When he chooses death over regeneration, he whispers, "I remembered her. That's enough." It's not redemption, it's surrender to memory. Kaneo Tsuyuri's evolution is marked by her speech. Initially sparse, her words gain weight as she confronts Doma. Her declaration, "I'm not her replacement. I'm her legacy," is both a rejection of erasure and an embrace of inheritance. Her dialogue is not just emotional, it's structural, signaling her emergence as a fully realized character. Muzan Kibutsuji's lines are clinical, godlike, and laced with contempt. He speaks not to communicate, but to dominate. His disdain for mortality is summed up in a chilling line: You cling to time like it's a gift. I see it for what it is, a disease. His dialogue reinforces his role not just as a villain, but as a philosophical antagonist. The script also excels in its use of silence. After Shinobu's death, Kaneo doesn't speak for several beats. When she finally does, her voice is raw. I heard her scream. I won't forget it. The delay makes the line land like a blade. There are moments of wit, but they're subdued, often emerging in the banter between Inosuke and Zenitsu. In one scene, Inosuke yells, "I'll headbutt the castle if I have to." It's absurd, but in the context of spatial chaos, it's oddly logical, and it breaks the tension without deflating the stakes. The dialogue in Infinity Castle is not ornamental, it's elemental. It shapes the emotional architecture of the film, defines character arcs, and reinforces the thematic spine, memory, sacrifice, and the cost of compassion. The standout lines don't just echo, they haunt. The dialogue in Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle does not aim for cleverness. It doesn't sparkle with wit or chase punchlines. Instead, it bleeds. It burns. It whispers final thoughts and echoes promises made long ago. In a film defined by its emotional gravity and mythic tone, the dialogue is not flashy, it's elemental. It carries weight because every word could be a character's last. And in most cases, it is. The writing is marked by a quiet restraint. Characters don't waste words. They speak when they must. In a world unraveling into darkness, words are rationed, and that makes them hit harder. When someone chooses to speak, the silence before and after gives the line a gravitational pull. You feel it rather than just hear it. One of the most devastating moments comes during Shinobu Kocho's confrontation with Doma. Her voice is soft, almost polite, but the words are laced with venom and finality. I have no strength to fight you. That's why I've made myself into a weapon. It's calm, cold, terrifying in its honesty. The line doesn't scream rage. It speaks of purpose built from grief. It's a confession and a death sentence wrapped into one, and it defines everything about Shinobu's arc. Her quiet exterior, the loss of her sister, and her resolve to turn that loss into vengeance. The moment lands with absolute clarity, not because of volume or theatrics, but because the line is delivered like a blade. Sharp, controlled, final. Tanjiro's dialogue continues to be driven by compassion, but it has evolved. Gone is the wide-eyed innocence of the early series. His lines now feel like the words of someone who's seen everything and still refuses to give in. There's a moment, deep in the Infinity Castle, when Tanjiro whispers to himself, almost like a prayer. Even if I break, even if I fall, I will keep moving forward, because someone has to. It isn't a declaration of heroism. It's a survival mantra. A reminder that purpose survives pain. This type of dialogue doesn't soar with poetic flourish, it sinks into you, settling somewhere under your ribs, because it feels born out of actual suffering. Musen's lines, by contrast, are soaked in supremacy and disgust. But what makes his dialogue disturbing is its cold logic. He does not monologue like a theatrical villain. He speaks as if he is above language itself. One line in particular chills the room when he says, "Humans fear death, so they cling to meaning. I do not. That is why I will live. This is not an empty threat. It's a thesis." Musen's view of the world, that mortality makes humans weak and desperate, stands in direct opposition to everything the Demon Slayer core believes in. This line frames him not just as a villain, but as a philosophical foil. And the film never forgets that. Every time someone dies, every time someone sacrifices themselves for the greater good, that line comes back to haunt the story. Zenitsu, often cast in a comedic light in earlier arcs, has a moment of intense emotional clarity that surprises both in delivery and impact. When separated and facing death, he says, "I'm not ready, but I'll still protect what matters, even if my legs shake." It's the kind of line that would be easy to overlook in a lesser script. But here, it defines his character's entire evolution. It's fear turned into action. It acknowledges vulnerability, not as a weakness, but as a companion to courage. The script also lets silence speak. Inosuke, known for brashness and wild energy, has a moment where he doesn't say anything. He watches a comrade fall. He trembles. He doesn't roar. Doesn't threaten. He just kneels. And then, finally, barely audible. Why does it hurt so much? That single line, almost childlike in its confusion, cuts through every previous scene of bravado. It's a reminder that underneath the beast mask is a boy who has never been taught how to mourn. The power of that line doesn't lie in its cleverness, but in its devastating simplicity. The script is also deeply aware of legacy. Characters often speak to the dead. Not directly, but in moments of solitude. When Ju finds himself on the brink, bleeding and surrounded, he murmurs, "Rengoku, was I ever as brave as you?" It's not rhetorical. It's a question filled with regret, admiration, and self-doubt, the kind that could only come from someone carrying the burden of survival after others have fallen. These moments, quiet, personal, are where the writing shines brightest. Not in spectacle, but in intimacy. There's no flab in this script. No unnecessary banter. No indulgent exposition. Every word either deepens the emotional texture or sharpens the stakes. The dialogue is weaponized emotion, sparse, deliberate, piercing. It often arrives in scenes of high tension, not to explain, but to reveal. A confession. A regret. A plea. A memory that refuses to fade. The writing mirrors the film's structure. Fragmented, layered, emotionally raw. Lines repeat. Echoes return. A promise made in one battle resurfaces in the next. Words are not forgotten, they're carried forward, like the scars these characters wear across their skin and soul. Infinity Castle is not a film driven by plot twists or grand speeches. It is driven by the things left unsaid until the moment they matter most. And when the words finally come, they hit like lightning. Not to dazzle, but to remind you that in this world of demons and destruction, what matters most is the voice that survives. Even if it's trembling. Even if it's breaking. Even if it's the last one you'll ever hear. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie. Infinity Castle operates firmly within the established conventions of its shonen action fantasy genre, yet it executes these conventions with such unparalleled technical prowess and emotional intensity that it elevates them into a truly captivating cinematic experience. It doesn't set out to subvert expectations through narrative trickery or genre deconstruction. Instead, it leans into the core strengths of its anime roots, delivering what its devoted audience anticipates, but at an unprecedented scale and fidelity. The film wholeheartedly embraces the convention of the climactic, final battle arc. This is a staple in long-running shonen series. The heroes, having trained and grown, finally confront the ultimate antagonist in a massive, all-out war. Infinity Castle is precisely this. The Demon Slayer Corps against Muzan Kibutsuji and his remaining upper ranks in a desperate, last-stand scenario. This adherence to convention provides immediate understanding for the audience of the stakes involved. There's no ambiguity, this is the beginning of the end. It relies heavily on the power-up trope and the last-minute save, common in battle-oriented anime. Characters, pushed to their limits, unlock new abilities, manifest demon slayer marks, or achieve transparent world insights. These moments, while expected, are rendered with such visual flair and preceding emotional buildup that they feel earned. Similarly, when a character is on the verge of defeat, a timely intervention from an ally is a frequent occurrence. While a cliché, the film makes these saves impactful due to the sheer desperation of the situation and the genuine camaraderie between the characters. The audience wants these saves because the alternative is bleak. Where Infinity Castle truly shines and perhaps introduces a fresh idea within its execution of convention is in its unflinching portrayal of the cost of victory. Many shonen series shy away from truly permanent consequences for their beloved main cast, especially during a final battle. Demon Slayer, however, is known for its willingness to inflict heavy tolls and even death upon its heroes. The film embraces this grim reality, making it a central pillar of its dramatic impact. The sense of pervasive danger is not a cheap trick, it's a constant, visceral threat that hangs over every character. This elevates the suspense significantly, as the audience is genuinely unsure who will survive or what sacrifices will be demanded. This commitment to the brutal reality of war is a defining characteristic and a fresh take on the typically more optimistic power of friendship narrative often found in the genre. The film's balance of action, suspense, humor and drama is masterfully handled, primarily by allowing one element to dominate at any given time while still weaving in subtle threads of the others. Action is the undeniable centerpiece. The fights are fluid, dynamic, and breathtakingly animated, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in animated combat. Ufotable's signature blend of 2D animation with CGI for effects and environmental movement ensures that every sword strike, every demon art, and every explosion is rendered with incredible detail and kinetic energy. The action is not just spectacle, it is intensely narrative, conveying power levels, character growth, and emotional states through movement and visual effects. The brutal efficiency of the battles contributes heavily to the grim tone. Suspense is woven throughout the entire film, fueled by the constantly shifting landscape of the Infinity Castle and the overwhelming power of the upper-rank demons. The disorienting nature of the environment means characters are frequently separated and uncertain of their surroundings or their allies' fates. The sheer scale of Muzin's power and the intelligence of his top subordinates create an atmosphere of constant dread. The film cultivates suspense by frequently putting beloved characters in seemingly unwinnable situations, leaving the audience on the edge of their seats wondering how, or if, they will escape. The deliberate pacing during certain demon introductions, building up their malevolent aura, also heightens the suspense. Humor, while present, is sparse and incredibly well-timed. It primarily comes from the established antics of Zenitsu and Inosuke. Zenitsu's terrified shrieks and over-the-top reactions serve as momentary releases of tension, a cathartic burst amidst the horror. Inosuke's wild, animalistic behavior and often misguided boasts offer similar, brief comedic beats. These moments are not allowed to derail the serious tone but rather act as essential humanizing elements and small emotional reprieves that prevent the relentless intensity from becoming overwhelming. They remind the audience that these are still young, often bewildered, individuals caught in an unimaginable war. Drama is the film's emotional backbone. It's built through the exploration of character backstories, the profound sense of loss and grief experienced by the demon slayers, and their unwavering determination in the face of despair. The dramatic elements are deeply intertwined with the action. Every clash is imbued with personal stakes and emotional resonance. The sacrifices made, the pain endured, and the unwavering bonds of camaraderie are all powerful dramatic drivers. The film's willingness to showcase the psychological and physical toll of the battle on its characters adds a layer of raw, impactful drama that elevates it beyond a simple action narrative. In conclusion, Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, Infinity Castle doesn't aim to reinvent the genre wheel. Instead, it embraces the conventions that have made shonen action fantasy so beloved and pushes them to their absolute artistic and emotional limits. Its fresh ideas lie in the unparalleled execution of its animation, its commitment to portraying the genuine, devastating costs of war, and its masterful balancing act of action, suspense, humor, and drama within a relentlessly intense and darkly heroic narrative. This dedication to its core strengths is precisely what makes it such an engaging and impactful cinematic experience. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, genre conventions are not merely followed, they're dissected, reassembled, and weaponized. The film operates within the framework of dark fantasy and shonen action, but Haruo Sotozaki and Ufotable push the boundaries of what those genres can emotionally and visually contain. The tone is oppressive, the mood is volatile, and the storytelling is a relentless descent into psychological and spiritual warfare. This is not a film that plays safe. It plays with fire. Action is the film's heartbeat, but it's not just kinetic, it's character-driven. The battles are not interchangeable spectacles, they are deeply personal reckonings. Zenitsu's duel with Kaigaku is not just thunder-breathing choreography, it's a confrontation with betrayal, grief, and legacy. The seventh form he unveils is not a genre trope, it's a narrative rupture. Similarly, Tanjiro's fight with Akaza is not a clash of blades, it's a philosophical debate rendered in motion. The choreography is balletic, but the emotional stakes are brutal. The genre's expectation of escalating power levels is subverted by emotional clarity. Tanjiro doesn't win because he's stronger, he wins because he understands. Suspense is not built through jump scares or plot twists, it's embedded in the architecture of the Infinity Castle itself. The castle shifts, collapses, and reconfigures, creating a spatial instability that mirrors the character's psychological unraveling. The audience is never allowed to settle. Every corridor is a threat. Every silence is a scream. The genre's typical reliance on external threats is inverted, the real danger is internal. Akaza's flashbacks, Shinobu's quiet resolve, Kaneo's emotional awakening, these moments are suspenseful not because of what might happen, but because of what must. Humor, traditionally a pressure valve in shonen anime, is used sparingly and strategically. Inosuke's wild declarations, like threatening to headbutt the castle into submission, offer brief reprieves, but they're not distractions. They're character affirmations. Zenitsu's dry sarcasm, once a comedic crutch, becomes a shield. The humor doesn't undercut the drama, it punctuates it. The film respects its tone too much to indulge in tonal whiplash. When laughter comes, it's earned. It's a reminder that even in despair, absurdity survives. Drama is the film's marrow. The emotional arcs are not side plots, they are the plot. Shinobu's death is not a twist, it's a culmination. Her final line, delivered with eerie calm, "I only need to be poisonous enough," is not just dramatic, it's mythic. Kaneo's response, her fury, her grief, her declaration, "I'm not her replacement. I'm her legacy," is not melodrama. It's catharsis. The genre's tendency to romanticize sacrifice is rejected. Sacrifice here is painful, messy, and often silent. The drama is not in the spectacle, it's in the aftermath. Fresh ideas emerge not from novelty, but from depth. The transparent world and selfless state are not just new powers, they're metaphysical concepts. Tanjiro's ability to see through Akaza is not just visual, it's spiritual. The film introduces the idea that clarity is strength, that empathy is a weapon, that memory is resistance. These are not genre clichés, they are genre evolutions. Clichés, when they appear, are dismantled. The final battle trope is not a triumphant crescendo, it's a slow, painful unraveling. The mentor dies trope is not a motivational device, it's a trauma that reshapes identity. The villain redemption arc is not a moral reset, it's a surrender to memory. Akaza's choice to die is not forgiveness, it's grief. The film's balance is not symmetrical, it's intentional. Action dominates, but it's never hollow. Suspense lingers, but it's never manipulative. Humor flickers, but it never derails. Drama saturates, but it never drowns. The genre is not a cage, it's a crucible. And Infinity Castle burns through it. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie. Infinity Castle walks into the battlefield of genre not to obey its rules, but to tear them apart and reshape them in fire and grief. This is not your typical shonen action fantasy film. Yes, it bears all the traditional markings, larger-than-life fights, power-ups mid-battle, fierce camaraderie, a climactic clash of good versus evil. But what makes Infinity Castle unforgettable is how it uses genre as a mask, only to peel it back layer by layer, revealing something more raw, more human, and far more devastating underneath. Most action-driven anime movies rely heavily on formula. Hero gets stronger, faces evil, narrowly wins, cue cathartic ending. But Infinity Castle refuses that structure. It doesn't build up to one final boss fight, it splinters into multiple high-stakes duels, happening all at once, in different parts of the collapsing fortress. The pacing becomes fractured, the location warps like a fever dream, and the film pulls you into a sensory overload that reflects exactly what the characters are feeling. Disorientation, desperation, resolve. This chaotic structure subverts the usual narrative progression where the story builds slowly and then climaxes in a singular moment. Here, every scene is the climax of someone's arc. Every battle is a reckoning. Instead of saving all its emotional and narrative weight for the end, Infinity Castle bleeds it out from the very beginning and never lets up. This isn't a rise then fall rhythm, it's a freefall. Constant, unrelenting, and deeply intimate. Even the power-up trope, so central to the genre, is twisted. Characters do not get stronger simply by training harder or yelling louder. Power in this world comes at a cost. A fatal cost. Shinobu's strategy against Doma is not a display of raw strength, it's a meticulously planned suicide mission. Mitsuri's strength doesn't come from anger, but from overwhelming love that makes her refuse to back down. Muichiro's awakening is not triumphant, it is the final unshackling of a haunted, half-lost identity. And then there's Tanjiro. His transformation throughout the film doesn't feel like a hero's ascension. It feels like a last stand. When he draws deeper into his technique, it doesn't feel like glory, it feels like sacrifice. The movie never lets you forget that with every step forward, he's walking closer to death. The action sequences are kinetic and explosive, but even here the film turns away from cliché. There's very little bravado. Fights are not about showing off skills, they're about survival. Each battle is a story within itself, tightly choreographed but emotionally charged, grounded in stakes that go beyond winning. The use of slow motion is rare and purposeful, usually reserved for a final blow, a memory flashing before death, or a shared look between comrades. And Infinity Castle does something bold with the idea of suspense. It doesn't dangle one cliffhanger, it scatters them. With multiple characters fighting simultaneously, the movie cuts away mid-battle, mid-sentence, sometimes mid-scream. You're left hanging, not knowing who has survived or who has fallen. It's disorienting, yes. But it mirrors the unpredictability of war. No neat arcs. No guaranteed outcomes. Humor, traditionally used in shonen anime as a breather between intense scenes, is used far more sparingly here. And when it does appear, it's not comic relief, it's character grounding. A flash of Zenitsu's panic, a sudden memory of a shared moment between Inosuke and Tanjiro, a joke that lands in a quiet pause before chaos erupts again. The humor doesn't break tension, it enhances the pain by reminding you what these characters are fighting to protect. The small, human moments of joy in a collapsing world. The dramatic weight of the story is relentless. The film doesn't apologize for its grief. It doesn't cushion its heartbreak with sentimentality. Instead, it drags you into the psychological aftermath of battle. There are moments after fights where characters don't cheer. They collapse. They cry. They whisper to the dead. And that choice, to linger in the emotional wreckage rather than rush to the next spectacle, is what elevates Infinity Castle beyond genre comfort zones. What's especially fresh about this film is how it treats its antagonists. The demons are not all cartoonish embodiments of evil. Many are tragic, once human, now monstrous because of pain, abandonment, or desperation. Doma, for example, is not just a cruel sadist. He is hollow, incapable of feeling, and that makes his evil cold rather than fiery. Muzan, the ultimate enemy, doesn't desire domination. He desires eternity without consequence. These are not simply villains to be vanquished, they are reflections of everything the protagonists refuse to become. Finally, the film plays with the emotional grammar of the genre itself. In most action fantasy stories, death is a dramatic punctuation. Here, it's a lingering echo. Death doesn't come with swelling music and slow-motion fades. Sometimes it comes quietly, off-screen, in the middle of a sentence. And yet, it reverberates throughout the rest of the film, in flashbacks, in hallucinations, in the trembling of a hand about to strike. So yes, Infinity Castle wears the clothes of a genre it knows intimately. But it doesn't just wear them, it deconstructs them. It asks, what happens if a shonen film doesn't chase triumph, but chooses grief as its foundation? What happens if power is not a gift, but a curse that leaves nothing but loss behind? The result is something that transcends formula. Something that feels familiar, but hurts in unfamiliar ways. Something that respects the genre, and then dares to ask more from it. Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie. Infinity Castle is not just a chapter in the story, it is the storm the entire series has been bracing for. Every season, every arc, every silent breath before a battle has led here. This film doesn't just continue the narrative, it detonates it. From the beginning, Demon Slayer has been a slow burn story of trauma, resilience, and redemption wrapped in the aesthetics of high-stakes action and exquisite visuals. But buried beneath the swordplay and demon lore is a persistent thread, the cost of survival. And now, with Infinity Castle, that thread is yanked taut until it breaks. What makes this film so pivotal in the overarching narrative is that it functions as both culmination and reckoning. We're no longer dealing with individual missions or incremental power-ups. This is the collapse of the old world, literally and thematically. The Demon Slayer Corps isn't just fighting demons anymore. They are confronting the origin of their suffering, the epicenter of the generational curse that Muzan Kibutsuji has become. The Infinity Castle arc brings together threads that have been whispering in the background for years. The lore of the 12 Kizuki reaches its end. The fates of the Hashira, pillars of strength throughout the story, are decided, brutally and beautifully. For longtime viewers, every interaction and every decision feels magnified, saturated with history. When Abanai looks at Mitsuri during battle, it is not simply love in a time of war. It is the final expression of a bond hinted at but always restrained by duty. When Sanemi and Genya fight side by side, it's not just a sibling alliance, it's a collision of unresolved guilt, forgiveness, and fate. Tanjiro's journey, too, comes full circle, not by achieving some neat resolution, but by confronting the totality of what he has become. His final battle is not just against Muzan, it's against despair itself, the weight of every death that has led to this moment. His evolution as a character doesn't play out in monologues or glory shots. It happens in the exhausted way he swings his sword, the trembling in his voice, the way he clings to humanity even when it would be easier to let it go. The film also finally unveils the true history of Muzan and the Demon Curse, a revelation that reaches all the way back to the origin of the Demon Slayer Corps. These are not just lore drops for flavor. They reshape everything we've understood about the fight between humans and demons. The movie peels back centuries of violence to reveal the pain, fear, and choices that created this endless war. It transforms the fight from a moral binary into a tragedy rooted in legacy. Even Nezuko's arc, silent for so long, reaches a profound turning point. Her transformation in this film isn't just physical. It's thematic. Her return to humanity, in the face of overwhelming demonic power, becomes the emotional counterpoint to Muzan's obsession with immortality. Her survival isn't just a happy ending. It's a statement. That survival, even when it is broken and blood-soaked, can still mean something. That the curse can be resisted. Infinity Castle also shifts the mythology of the series. What was once a story about avenging family or saving a sister becomes something more existential. This is a war not just for life, but for meaning. The film asks the question, when everything is lost, comrades, mentors, friends, what remains worth fighting for? And the answer isn't shouted. It's whispered in dying breaths, in trembling hands passing swords, in memories that refuse to fade. Stylistically, the film maintains the visual grandeur of the series, but now there's a sense of finality in the way scenes are constructed. The colors are more intense, the compositions more symbolic. The castle itself is not just a backdrop, it is a character, reflecting the psychological and thematic descent of the story. It shifts, twists, falls in on itself, a literal manifestation of a world breaking apart. If the earlier arcs built the foundation, Infinity Castle is the earthquake. And it is ruthless. It does not flinch. Characters we've grown with for years do not get cinematic send-offs. They die in silence, mid-motion, sometimes achieving their goals, sometimes not. That unpredictability is what makes the film feel like a point of no return. There is no reset. No filler to cushion the blows. What happens here sticks. But perhaps most strikingly, this film honors the emotional continuity of the series. It doesn't forget where it came from. When Tanjiro recalls the simple days of selling charcoal, when Rengoku's words echo through another character's mind, when the soundtrack weaves familiar motifs into moments of heartbreak, it becomes clear. Infinity Castle is not just telling a new story. It is remembering all of them. And so, as part of a long, sprawling narrative, Infinity Castle does what few franchise films ever do. It changes the shape of the story. It does not offer resolution. It offers consequence. It doesn't elevate the stakes. It finalizes them. This is not a chapter. It is the reckoning the story has always been moving toward. And once you leave the castle behind, nothing will ever be the same. In Demon Slayer, Infinity Castle, the contribution to the overarching narrative is not incremental, it's tectonic. This is the crucible where every thread spun across seasons and films is pulled taut, frayed, and finally severed. The tone is apocalyptic, the mood is suffused with dread and urgency, and the storytelling is a crescendo of emotional and thematic reckoning. The film doesn't just continue the story, it detonates it. The Infinity Castle arc is the penultimate chapter of the Demon Slayer saga, adapted from chapters 137 to 183 of the manga. It plunges the Demon Slayer core into Muzan Kibutsuji's dimensional stronghold, a surreal, shifting fortress that mirrors the psychological disorientation of its inhabitants. This setting is not a backdrop, it's a narrative device. The castle's instability reflects the crumbling boundaries between life and death, memory and oblivion, humanity and monstrosity. Every major character arc finds its climax here. Tanjiro's evolution from grieving brother to spiritual warrior culminates in his battle with Akaza, where he unlocks the transparent world and selfless state. Zenitsu's confrontation with Kaigaku is not just a fight, it's a reckoning with betrayal and legacy. Shinobu's death is not a plot point, it's a thematic fulcrum, a meditation on sacrifice and vengeance. These moments are not isolated, they are echoes of earlier arcs, now amplified and resolved. The film also deepens the mythology. Muzan's retreat into the Infinity Castle is not cowardice, it's strategic, a last stand that forces the Demon Slayers into his domain. The castle's architecture, manipulated by Neikime, becomes a weapon. The battles are not linear, they are layered, intercut, and emotionally synchronized. The editing and pacing reflect this fragmentation, creating a rhythm that mirrors the characters' psychological states. Stylistically, the film abandons the episodic structure of previous arcs. It embraces cinematic scale, with long takes, immersive sound design, and visual metaphors that elevate the narrative. The use of color, light, and spatial distortion is not aesthetic, it's thematic. When Tanjiro enters the transparent world, the palette desaturates, the sound thins, and time slows. It's not just a power-up, it's a metaphysical rupture. Thematically, Infinity Castle is a crucible of memory, sacrifice, and identity. Akaza's flashbacks are not exposition, they are emotional detonations. Shinobu's final line, "I only need to be poisonous enough," is not bravado, it's legacy. Kaneo's declaration, "I'm not her replacement. I'm her legacy," is not defiance, it's rebirth. These lines are not dialogue, they are thematic anchors. As part of a trilogy, the film sets the stage for the Sunrise Countdown arc, the true finale. But Infinity Castle is the emotional climax. It's where the characters stop surviving and start choosing. It's where the story stops unfolding and starts collapsing. It's not a continuation, it's a culmination. And while the series is set during the Taisho era, the historical accuracy is not literal, it's atmospheric. The architecture, clothing, and social dynamics evoke early 20th century Japan, but the focus is not on realism. It's on emotional truth. The era serves as a canvas for exploring themes of modernity, tradition, and existential dread. The immersion is not in historical detail, it's in emotional resonance. Infinity Castle doesn't just contribute to the overarching narrative, it redefines it. It's the moment the story stops being about demons and starts being about what it means to fight, to remember, and to remain human.